So, before anybody says anything, I'm well aware that this is going to be a late video, but if you want it, here it is anyway. And I also lost the recording, so that's why it is late. I lost it the day before I left, and I was gone for 4 days, so yeah. I'm back, and I just got my voice back today, so I'm going to go ahead and get this video out of the way. I just recorded our first story of the year, The Asylum, Chapter 1, by Matt Demersky. And it is a 6-part story, and I really think you're going to love it. I personally am really enjoying how it is starting. The first chapter will really hook you on the story, I think. So I can't wait to introduce that as our first story of the year. But first, let's take a look back at last year, 2017, as we have our year in review. So, if you don't know how this works, basically what I go through is I go through everything I've done this last year, which was 2017, and in fact, I even have created my annual playlist that I do of my personal favorite uploads of every year. And mine this year has 31 stories. My personal, of course, the first few on there are my Madness in Wonderland series, and that's because that was one of the first stories I did of the year, actually, so... And that was the first one that I really felt like I wanted to put on there because it's such a milestone for every one of us that's participated in it, that I really do feel like it deserves that spot. But other than that story, my favorite story of the year, if you are wondering, according to my playlist, of course, is going to be Santa's Other Workshop by none other than the Cheshire Cat. Sid, you know, whatever you want to call him. Killahawk 1, Sid, yeah. That would be my personal favorite other story that I've done this year. I really, really enjoyed it. It was an amazing concept, and honest to God, I would not be opposed to him writing more Christmas stories. Because it was so good, and I remember when I found it, I was like, holy shit! I know this guy! Like, I was like, oh my god, I can totally do this now. And it was a really good story, and I felt like it was the best one that we did for the Christmas series. The next, other than that, would have been, if you're wondering, my top 3, other than my own story, and that. My top 3 would be The Scariest Haunted House in the World by Dead and Spread, the Huntsville Camping Trip reboot, and then A Christmas Feast by Michael Whitehouse. Those are my 3 top favorites other than my Madness in Wonderland and Santa's Other Workshop. Those are my 3 other favorites that are by other narrators that I've covered this year. All 3 great stories, especially the first and the third. Michael Whitehouse, you are a genius, and I want more Christmas stories if you can make that happen, because all of your Christmas stories are fantastic, and I absolutely adore them. This one was honestly probably my favorite. If it wasn't this one, it was A Christmas Tree, or The Christmas Tree. A Christmas Feast is probably my favorite, though, because it's really, really, I just enjoy how I got to narrate it, and I like the twist at the end. And then The Scariest Haunted House in the World, Dead and Spread just fucks you up with his writing, so you know you're in for something good with him. So, without further ado, let's get into what I did this last year. And, starting us off, hold on. This is a little bit weird. There we go. That was a little bit weird. It wasn't pulling up there for a second. Kept trying to go to my YouTube panel and it says this channel has no content. But then I go back onto it whenever I hit a playlist, and it works just fine. So I'm like, what the fuck? Anyways, that was weird. A little bit scary too, but we're gonna go by the very first uploads of the year. And the very first upload that I made this year was, of course, the Happy 2017 thing. And I'll do that for this is kind of my... I'll make this Year in Review 2018 / Happy 20... Or, sorry, Year in Review 2017 / Happy 2018. I'll kind of just mix those two together, because that was only like a 10-minute video, and it was just to introduce the new year, which I'm doing right now, of course. So, okay, my sound foam keeps hitting the thing, so I'm going to take it off. Alright, so what I did this year was I started with the Case Files series, which was my second favorite series creepypasta. And it used to be my first favorite, but in recent years I've really come to appreciate Pen Pal more than anything. So I started off the year with that, and we started off with a bang. I was in a big, huge boom at that time. Like, every video I was making was getting over 1,000 views almost. It was crazy. It was a great time for me. The Case Files series started off with a 3.2 thousand, and then went into a 1.8, a 2,000, 950, 1,000, 407, 1,000, 658, 713. You know, I was having a great time at this time of the year. This is all in January, and it was a great month. I enjoyed all of those stories so much. That was the longest series that I've done on here so far, but spoiler alert, Madness in Wonderland will soon take that spot, and nothing that I do on this channel will ever be longer than that story, because it's already 13 chapters long and there's no end in sight. So, you know. Yeah, I'm kind of like that. But it's okay, because it's all going to be a great story. Speaking of which, if you are excited for that, today I send out the script to my narrators. I did not get the chance to do it. Oh, there's my microphone. I did not get the chance to do it on Christmas as I had planned, so I will make sure that I do that today, as I am off. So I will do that and send that out to them. We are hesitantly setting our date for the 31st, if it's possible for my narrators. It's not a chapter that requires most of the characters, actually. In this chapter, I believe I only actually have to have myself, the Cheshire Cat, or Sid's. I don't know why I'm do myself and then name a character. The Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, and David, of course. I think those are the only three that I really am going to need for this next chapter, as it's really just going to focus on the flashback of David and, you know, how he pieces together exactly how he went to Wonderland. And, you know, it's going to show you exactly how David plays into everything, as he's the main character. And by now, I'm not really spoiling anything by saying that. I've said it several times, I believe. But yeah, Alice is not the main character. I know I've said that. So that's coming the 31st. If nothing else, I do have the trailer 100% done and ready to upload. That will be on the 31st. If the story is not, then the trailer will be for sure. If I can get the story out at the same time, I'll do the trailer first, and then I'll release the video right after that. But that'll be later today, so if you're excited for that like I am, then get ready. Because 2018 is going to be a good year for Madness in Wonderland. Alright, so after the Case Files series, I started by going into Act 2 of another story I had started a year prior, which is another one of my favorites from back in the day, The Puppet Master's Regime. And I did Act 2 of that, and that's the first story other than the Case Files series that I did. And I really, really liked that series of stories. And I didn't finish it for a little while after that, because I had quite a lot planned in that next month. And you'll see why in a little bit. I had some big milestones in this next month that came up. February was quite the month for us this last year, and it's gonna be pretty special for this year. So basically, after that, I did Mirrors by the author Kaylin Rutter, and she actually commented on there and said that she loved my narration, and I thought that was really cool. I always enjoy when authors message me and tell me that I've done a good interpretation of their work. It makes me feel like I've done my job, because if I'm not making it good for the person that wrote it, then I'm not making it good for anybody. I don't care if some random person who doesn't know anything about the person that wrote it or why they might have written it, if they care about it. It's like saying that you make a Stephen King adaptation that everybody loves, but Stephen King doesn't love it, and you all know what I'm talking about right here. But if that were me, I would hate that. I would do whatever I needed to do to make the one person that wrote it love it, because that's the person that matters in the end, is the person that created it, honestly. And then, of course, the fans matter, but I feel like if you don't do a justice to the creator, you're disrespecting them and their creation. And that is something that I would never want to do. So, you know, that's always great to hear from authors that you've done a good job. It's almost like, hey, good job, you know. It's not like whenever they message you and they're like, oh, well, I didn't really like this. Can you take it down? Which I haven't had happen, and I'm not hoping to have that ever happen. But, you know, I had a scare one time with an author, and I'll never do another one of his stories. That's for sure. But I've already mentioned that several times, and that's water under the bridge. So, next I did On the Bus, which is another one I really, really enjoyed. I had wanted to do that so many times previously before I actually did it that it was crazy. And then when I finally sat down and did it, I actually had the performance that I wanted in my head, and it was perfect. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm At Your Bedroom Window was a reboot one that I did, and I found that story through Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, and I enjoyed the fuck out of it. And I know I'm gonna get demonetized just because I said fuck, so fuck. Oh man, monetization is a bitch. I never have any of these monetized. They never stay monetized, these personal videos, because I do have a mouth on me. I tend to just kind of I live in a shitty place, so you get a shitty vocabulary from it sometimes. So, the next one I did was Tall, Thin, and Faceless, which is the one and only Slenderman story that I have done and probably will ever do. I say probably, it's probably like a more of 98% to 2% that I will do one again. I would have to be sent a very, 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 very good story. In my opinion, that one was like the best one that I had heard, and I really enjoyed it. And it's a classic too. So I did that reboot, and then I did an Updates and Shit. It's literally called Updates and Shit. Which, funny thing, it got demonetized just because shit's in the title. It's funny. It doesn't have anything bad in it. It says Updates and Shit, so they demonetized it. Next was probably the biggest milestone I had this last year, and it was the debut of my story, Madness in Wonderland, which I surprised everybody with by releasing it, believe, a month early, because I had all the lines already, and I was like, fuck it, I just assembled it, and I wanna release it. So I released it, and it got released to mixed reception. Throughout the next couple of months, I was hit with a bunch of dislikes on every one of my videos, even though, like, I'll show you a couple of examples where people have told me in the comments, like multiple people are saying, why are there so many dislikes? This is such a good story, this is such a good narration. And I'm not kidding. You can actually check me on the example that I give you here, because I just approved the comment like a couple of days ago or a week ago, and I don't know why there were a whole lot of them. People were telling me I was getting botted, and people were telling me, oh, you can't be botted. So I was getting told a lot of shit. I don't know what to believe, but I know that the views were not adding up to the dislikes. That much I do know. So that's all I can say about the subject. I don't know what it was. I don't care what it was. It diminished and went away, and it hasn't hit me since. But it started with that story. And I think a big part of the dislikes on that, I think a lot of them on that first chapter were probably genuine because it got a good amount of views. It kind of blew up because it was really high. I really hyped it up. And while I thought it was a perfect intro, which was all it was meant to be, it was only meant to be an intro to the story, which, I mean, 20 minutes of it is, I thought that was a pretty good stopping point, about 20 minutes almost. And, of course, people were like, well, this isn't enough. So I was like, all right, I came out with a video right after that, thanking everybody. And then after that, so I was like on a high point. I was very, very ecstatic. And throughout the next 2 days, the dislikes started hitting. And I just got depressed about it. And a little bit angry. But before that, I did Fear Itself's Horror Reboot 5, where I actually rebooted the Creepypasta Survival Guide. And then Secret Bar reboot by Banning K. And I love that story. It's a very good story. And I felt like the year before when I had done it, I didn't do it justice. So I redid it. And I felt like I did really a much better job in the reboot. So then I did my infamous video, Let's Have a Talk. And I was a little bit of a bitch in this video. Because I was, like I said, I was angry, I was depressed. People were not responding well to something I had put my soul into for 3 years. And basically it made me want to tell them all, just wait, it will get better. Like, and that was basically what I was trying to do, was just say, wait and be patient with me. This is only the first chapter. It will get better, I promise you. And reception did greatly increase for the next 2 chapters. I'm just gonna hold my mic. I don't know why I'm even doing that. So reception did increase over the next 2 months, and over the next 2 chapters, of course, which was very good for me because I was, like I said, I was mad that something I had put so much of my time and effort into was basically going to waste. In my opinion. Now I look back and I'm like, no, it's really not that. People just needed the time to get warmed up to it. They needed to kind of see what was going on. And they couldn't really figure that out until I think the 3rd chapter. Because that's where I really introduced the villain more. He's introduced in the 2nd chapter, but he's more introduced in the 3rd than anything. He has more of a dialogue in that, and you kind of figure out what he's after. So they did rush me to get Madness in Wonderland Chapter 2 out after I saw the negative reception of the 1st chapter, because I was like, I'll show you, and I got the 2nd one out like that, like within the same month, actually. So I got that chapter out within the same month, and then it got a lot better reception, and it even got more views. So it still got a whole lot of dislikes, but it got better reception, and that was all that mattered to me. And then, and I'm not, if you're wondering why I'm not going into what happens in my story, it's because at the end of the month, I will be doing a behind the scenes that goes into each chapter individually. It kind of gives you everything that you need to know about it, little hints and tidbits. So, in fact, I might even do like 1, 2, and 3 together, because then I have a little bit more to talk about, because I can't really give anything away that I haven't already announced in the story officially. So, I can only give you things that you haven't already seen that have been in the story, or like things that you've missed. So that will be coming at the end of the month as well. Alright, after that I did a Vincent Vinicava story that creeps me the fuck out whenever I read it, and gives me chills every time I think about it. The African Boana Spider, which is a story about, long story short, it's not really a long story, it's like 6 minutes. Short story short, it is a doctor that comes back from a foreign country, and he tells this comrade about this spider in the wilderness that basically climbs inside of its victim and feeds off of its fluids and uses it like a puppet until it's useless, and then whenever it dies, it crawls out of the mouth and basically just attaches onto somebody else. And the twist of the story is that at the end of the story, he says, "Oh, why, Doctor? Well, I couldn't even imagine such a thing." He's like, "What would happen if such a thing were to get loose in England?" And he says, "I dare say it already has." And then, of course, the spider crawls out of his mouth, which is a really good ending. I thought it was a great, great story. Very, very twisted ending there, and it creeps me the fuck out to think about that. I really hope that's not a real thing. No, I have not looked it up. And no, I will not look it up. Next was one I had heard from, I had heard this story from CreepyPasta Jr. And, it's another one that really creeps me out because it's in my opinion worse than the last one, because the spider actually kind of, like, it'll kill you first or like paralyze you or something, but this one, just listen to this. All right. So A Very Bad Place to Hide is a story about a kid who goes and plays hide and seek, and they're in a junkyard, and he hides in this refrigerator, and in this refrigerator he gets trapped, and this earwig starts, like, he feels this earwig, and he can't move to, like, scrap it away, and it crawls inside of his ear, and it starts just pinching and pinching, and I can't even imagine. And eventually they finally find the kid and they get it out of there, but they have to pull it out of his ear, and I can't imagine that. That sounds awful. The next one was another one I had heard from CreepyPasta Jr., a very popular one on his channel, The Sistaline Spectre, which is a story about a group of people who want to create a 4D horror game, and they end up creating it, but they get more than they bargained for. And that's all I'll say about that one. I want you to go and listen to it now if you haven't. If you have, you already know what happens. Next was another great one by T.W. Grimm. This is the example I was about to bring up whenever I was bringing up the dislike thing. When Dusk Falls on Hadley Township. This story was phenomenal, and people in the comments agreed with me, and many of them were commenting saying, "Why are there so many dislikes on this video?" And I can only explain that by saying this was in the time when I was getting spammed with it. I don't know where it was coming from. I don't care where it was coming from. It's gone, and I'm not going to address it anymore. So that was the example that I was going to bring up. The prime example. Next was Madness in Wonderland Chapter 3, Time for Tea. And this story, or this chapter, introduced the villain a little bit more, the Mad Hatter. And kind of give you a little bit more backstory of stuff that's setting up for stuff to come in the future, because 4 and 5 really go into the past, and kind of you're figuring out things that happen through the past. Really, you have to find out what happened in the past to find out what's happening in the future. It all plays together. It's all just an endless cycle. That's why it does that. The next one was The Devil's Mimic, and I really like that story. It's very interesting. It's about a mynah bird that this couple is taking care of, this couple with this baby. They're taking care of the mynah bird, and mynah birds are known for mimicking sounds that they like. So, of course, and it's stated that they can mimic even the sound of like a microwave, and I can't even imagine how annoying that would be. So that's basically the point of it, until one night, the owner starts to hear a strange snatch of music and, like, chanting coming from the bird. So he records it, and he brings it to these priests, and these priests, long story short, they say, "You need to find out whoever said these words. You have the chance to save a soul." And that's where I'll leave you on that one, because I don't want to ruin the ending for you. It's quite the devilish little ending. I had, like, no clue whenever I first heard it that it was going to end that way, and it was a little bit shocking, to be honest. The next was another personal favorite of mine. I started getting into classic literature. This was something I'd actually read in my high school English class right before I narrated it, and I enjoyed it so much that I narrated it. and that is Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And that one, I really thought, it's by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and if you haven't heard it, it's actually a really interesting story. And of course, I have a very exaggerated voice and stuff for it. I mean, listen to anybody else's except for Mr. Creepypasta's narration of it, and you'll get the same thing. I mean, that's how you're supposed to read it. It's not supposed to be read like I'm talking to you right now. This is Rime of the Ancient Mariner. No, it's not supposed to be like that. You're supposed to speak, with tones and inflections in your voice that make it moody and set the tone for the story, because it's more like an epic, kind of like Beowulf, like that kind of type. Stuff like that. Not really like Beowulf at all. That was a terrible example, but you know what I mean. Next, I started my 3-year anniversary off with The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, which is the first Edgar Allan Poe story I have ever done, which I have actually been asked to do quite a few times, actually, and I'm really surprised that I hadn't done one before 3 years in, but that was the first one that I did, so I thought that was a pretty good intro into it. And then I did The Russian Sleep Experiment, another huge classic in the creepypasta world. Personally, I could never finish the story when I was originally narrating it. I don't know why. Some weird stuff would always happen. I'm not kidding. This was one of those stories where I had tried to record it like 7 times previous, and circumstances happened that I would always get interrupted and never get it done. So I finally got that one out, which was good because I never want to have to look at that story again. It was god-awful. Lost Episodes by Slime Beast, which is a very good story. I won't ruin anything about that story. It's the only Lost Episode thing I've ever done for a reason. It's not a Lost Episode creepypasta, it's something else. It's just called Lost Episodes. It doesn't actually have anything to do with all those stupid little fucking fan Scooby-Doo and old Pokemon. I fucking hate those stories. They're dumb as shit and they make absolutely no sense. Alright. Next, we did The Telltale Heart, which was another Edgar Allan Poe classic. I'm setting my mic down now. That's what that sound is. Don't freak out, everybody. Alright, there we go. Next, we did Antran. How do I put the stories that I find on CreepyPasta's channel? Bland, unoriginal, boring. Sometimes. I mean, this story is not terrible, but it's not great. I really don't think it's a great story. It's got some cool themes in it and stuff, but personally, I can't really take most of the stories on CreepyPasta's channel seriously because some of the titles on there are just so... He reminds me of, like, Leafy with his with the clickbait titles. And it might be a bit of an extreme example, but go and look at some... You know what? We're taking a break right here. I'm gonna take a look at some of this shit. I'm gonna show you what I mean by this. Because I know people are gonna be like, why are you hating on CreepyPasta? And it's because I think he's the least original person, including Mr. Creepypasta, in the entire community. Oh my god. Alright, I'm on his channel now. We're gonna look at some of these titles. Right? First of all, anybody that puts true story, it's not true. But, we've got Dear Son, This Is Why Your Favorite Teddy Bear Disappeared, with 167,000 views. If you're in a big city, stick with the populated areas. My first and only trip to Cafe 1987. I don't know how these photos got in my time capsule. I bought a haunted piano on Craigslist. what I found wrapped in an old dog food bag. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh man, some of these are just terrible. Never look through other people's eyes? How can you? What? Oh my god. This one is seriously so long they couldn't fit it on the thing. It's called My Wife is Taking Care of a Baby Doll More Than Our Daughter. Am I the only one that thinks these are fucking ridiculous, guys? I can't be the only one that thinks these are fucking ridiculous, right? The all-new, improved, universal snack and beverage machine Creepypasta. Are you fucking kidding me? Now, do correct me if I'm wrong on this, everybody. But if you saw some titles like that, and you laughed like I just did, would you ever even click on the story? Like, it doesn't fucking matter what the story is if you can't even have a good title. Like, I mean, the longest title I've had on here has been the one that was, shit, it was, fuck. The Reddit one. My daughter died, or, yeah, my daughter died on her 6th, whatever it is, you know which one I'm talking about. Died on their 6th birthday. A man just handed me photos of her 7th. But I only put my daughter died on her 6th birthday, ... And I don't put the entire fucking title in the actual thing. No, you don't do that. That's why they're fucking long. Oh my god. Oh man. Some of these are just ridiculous. I can't take stuff like that seriously, guys. I can't. It's just not possible. Alright, on to the next thing. I've ranted enough. We did our Fear Itself reviews, episode 4, Weird Kid, and Dear Lord Help Me, subtitled. And yeah, I went off the deep end on that one a little bit because that story was a lot of shit, and I really did not like it. It really pissed me off. Bedtime by Michael Whitehouse was next. We did the first and second one. Then we finished up the Puppet Master's Regime and went on to our double feature of Madness in Wonderland, chapters 4, which was Enter Wonderland, and 5, which was Alice the Queen. And those went into the stuff that those let me just say, if you did not listen to chapter 4 and chapter 5 of Madness in Wonderland and you're planning on listening to chapter 7 and 8, do not. You have to see 4 and 5 first. They are very important to the story. You will see why in chapters 7 and 8. I can't reveal anything else. Then we finished up with 3, 4, and 5 of Bedtime, and we went on to a new story, The Salesman by Nathato, I hope I'm saying this right, Nathato Murakabe. And that was a really, really cool story, a really cool concept. Kind of like The Proposition, which is the story I keep mentioning by not naming it whenever I say I had a scare with authors. But, yeah. That, it's kind of like that concept, but I think a little bit more interesting even. Then, I was away for a little while, and I had to come back and say that I was still there. And then I came out with The Witchwick Candle. And that one is that was by I Post at Midnight, and that was a great, great story. It's an hour long. It's the longest story I've done on here, and it's a great, great story. I just encourage you to go and listen to it. It's got a lot of really cool concepts in it, and it'll keep you on your toes until the very end. And you'll know at the very end how it's gonna end whenever it pops up. I guarantee you. Then we had Quiet by Joseph K. And Joseph K. is such a good author. And that's not his real name, I know, but I assume that's what he wants me to call him on here. He is a great author, and I absolutely love his work. If you remember last year, I did Roadwork by him. I intend to do Dust this year, actually, or Fog, maybe. One of those two. I'm hinging on one of those two stories. So maybe leave down in the comments which one you'd like to hear out of those two. Or if you have another Joseph K. story in mind, just let me know. And then, of course, I'll contact him and make sure that I can narrate it. So, The Stairs in the Doorway, which was a new story I had hunted for, was by Eric Dodd. And that's a very interesting story, too. And it's about a guy working at a college as the security for some extra money during the winter. And he discovers a little more than he bargained for. The next one was Susan by TVATR, and I really enjoy that. That's just a full-on classic story. Followed by All the Papers Lied Tonight, another one. That one got demonetized, guys. Alright, go back and listen to All the Papers Lied Tonight and tell me if there's anything suggestive in it. Compared to something like The Scariest Haunted House in the World, which was demonetized, but then remonetized. Explain it. I can't. The Ocean's Cool Air by Vincent Vinicava. Another short but sweet story that'll keep you on your edge. And it's a very, very good story. Of course, Vincent Vinicava always delivers. And there'll be more of his stories this year too. Count on that. The Scariest Haunted House in the World, which is, other than Santa's Other Workshop, my favorite story I have done this year. And it is because it is just a phenomenal story from start to finish. And it just really, really... It was great to upload right before the Halloween season came in, which came in the next 2 months. So, yeah, it was a very, very good story, and you need to go and listen to it if you haven't. Dead and Sprayed is just an amazing author. And following that is the author of The Asylum, which is our story today, A Trick of Perspective by Matt Demersky. And that story got a lot of traction compared to some of the videos I had uploaded previously for like the last 3 months, even. And so, I was really surprised that it blew up as fast as it did, which, it's a very good story, but, you know, I think it's more that I put by Matt Demersky in it, because people are really starting to find out who these authors are, which is very, very good. That's why they need to put that stuff in the title, because I see people that don't even put it in there, and then or they'll put the name and they have no link to like where the books are. Like, I know that you can't just go and get all the stories and post links to them, but if it's from a book and you got permission from the author, then you should put the link to the book there. And people like MCP don't always do that. There's a bunch of MCPs that don't even have a link to the story. And I know that he gets sent a whole bunch of stories, but that's still pretty shitty for all the people that want to know where you got that. Like, because then, if I'm a reader, say I'm not even a narrator looking for stories, say I'm just a reader looking for stories, how am I supposed to know where you got that amazing story from if you don't tell me in the title, and you don't tell me in the damn description? That pisses me off. And it should piss off the author too, I'm sure. Next was Madness in Wonderland Chapter 6, It Runs in the Blood. This chapter really revved up the story and brought in a whole bunch of shit that's going to set up the next chapters. This is kind of, Chapter 6 was the transition from, alright, now it's getting super serious. Stuff really, really kicks off in Chapter 6, and from Chapter 6 on, the story only gets darker. There is nothing you can expect that will be... Well, let me just say, none of your expectations can meet what I've actually created. It's just, it'll keep you guessing until the end, and then you'll know exactly where I'm going with it. Or will you? Next was A Message. In this video, I talked about my sexuality with all of you, and basically came out to you. So I don't really need to say anything else about that. I got a whole lot of support for it. And that's that. That's that. Next was 9/17/10. And that one was, I don't really enjoy that story. I don't know how All the Papers Lied Tonight got demonetized and 9/17/10 didn't. Because, well... If you know what 9/17/10 is, then you know how dark of a story it is. And, yeah, it's not a good thing. Next was The Midnight Dancer, which was a clown creepypasta, which I actually had just gotten back from the movie It, and that's why I really wanted to do it, because I was itching to do a clown story, and that was the best one that I knew for sure. No, I'm not going to do Laughing Jack, because my own character, the Hatter, takes too much inspiration from Laughing Jack now, that I'm not going to do anything like that anymore. Laughing Jack is dead, and let's all let him die in peace. Next was a new story I had hunted for called An Illegal Investigation of Ballintully Springs. And that was actually a very, very, very good story. Listen to it now if you haven't. It's a good news story if you haven't heard it before, which I'm sure you haven't. I had never heard of it before. I was just hunting for stories, and it caught my eye because of the name. So I looked at it, and it was a very good story. Very, very mysterious, and it keeps you guessing until the end. I did not guess what was going to happen there. I know I've said that about a lot of these stories, but whenever I say that, you should know I'm telling you the truth. And in that story, I actually created a new sound, which I've reused and repurposed, like edited and stuff. But I did a shriek in that, and I've had people ask me how I did that. What I did was I basically just breathed in and like made a yelling sound at the same time, like reverse yell, and it sounds like this. Hurts the fuck out of my throat to do that. But you gotta do it. I'm not gonna say do it for the Vine. Fuck Vine. Gotta do it for the YouTube. But yeah, I basically just heavily edited myself doing that on a much higher scale. I had a lot more in my voice at that time, so I could do it a lot better, obviously, but you know what I mean. If you've heard the story, you know what sound I made. But yeah, it was me that made the sound. It wasn't generated already. I did make it myself, and it did hurt just as much as you would expect it to. Next was our 5th episode of Fear Itself Reviews, which was Jeff the Killer. And our next one will actually be episode 6. It will be controversial. I might get a lot of shit. I might not get a lot of shit. I probably will get a lot of shit, though, because it's been drowned. And I fucking hate that story, so it's gonna get a lot more shit than Jeff the Killer did. And the reason for that, I will tell you in the review, because that is the story that spawned so many others, just like Jeff the Killer. Only I think Ben's are a lot worse. And I'll get into that, because Ben doesn't just cross one thing. He crosses multiple things. Like, Jeff the Killer created one subgenre. Ben Drowned created multiple subgenres. So yeah, fuck him. Fuck that story. I hate it so much, and I will tear it the fuck apart next month. Yeah, expect that. The next was another classic literature, and it was called The New Mother. This story is another one I found through Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I found this story actually 3 years ago before I ever started YouTube, and I heard it one day. What was funny was what caught my eye originally was the drawing they had used for the story. The thumbnail caught my eye, and it looked really interesting, and I was listening to stories, and I never actually listened to the full thing. And then I went back, and I think, hold on. There was that one story that had that really interesting drawing, and I remembered what it was called. I said, that was called The New Mother. And I went back and I listened to that story again, and I loved it. I fell in love with it, and I did it myself. And I even did a little British accent for it the entire time. Next, we started our Halloween series off with the 16th story, The Masked Man. Then we went into The Creeping Mange, followed by Mirror Lake, The Blue Man, The Cell Phone Game, which is, I'm not even going into that one right now. The Huntsville Camping Trip reboot that I'm so fond of. From Hell I Write, another very, very great story from start to finish. Ickbar Bigglestein, which is another one that I use that like shrieking voice. That's how I speak in that one too. And I find it like more disturbing than if I just talk regularly. A Ritual, The Halloween Mask by Slime Beast, Candy Pieces, Leonard's Pumpkins, and then we ended it off with a finale that started with The Void and ended with let me it started with The Void, Mr. Bones, Wander on the Tracks, Please Take Just One. That's right. Then I announced my Creepy Christmas series, which is what we've most recently done. We're already to the end of the video, almost. And, of course, I announced that I'd be doing my Christmas series again, and I'd be bringing the 12 Days of Creepy Christmas, is what I called it. And I started with Zippy the Elf, which got the most traction out of any story in the countdown for whatever reason, and ended with A Christmas Feast by Michael Whitehouse. And in between that, we had 3 stories by Imani Robertson, who sent these stories to me last year to be narrated for Creepy Christmas. And if you've got any more, if you write any more, Imani, feel free. Or anybody. If anybody writes some Christmas stories, feel free to send them to me, and I will be happy to consider them. And I don't guarantee any stories, because of course you have to read a story before you know if you like it or not. And I do try to kind of keep my stories to a kind of the same kind of type of stuff. Kind of serious stuff. Not too serious, but kind of serious. And then we had The Poem of the Fur and Fur, which are both about a Christmas demon who comes by to steal a present for those who are forgotten on Christmas and the demon's kind. And so I thought that was a really interesting concept. And of course, if you tell of the demon, you come down with a powerful, powerful cold. And the story is set before cold medicine was created, so that is how that plays into it being a big problem. A cold back then was basically a death sentence. Yeah. So that's where it is set for that to actually take place. And that's why I really liked it. And then we had Mistletoe, which is a mysterious little story. If you never figured out what the story was about, it's about a carnival barker that is selling a fruit cake. It's a cake. It doesn't necessarily say fruit cake. It says that it's a crimson brand cake, and it's baked with a berry delight. Now, unbeknownst to the carnival goers, the berry is mistletoe. And if you know what mistletoe is, it is toxic. So, he basically sells all these carnival people this cake laced with mistletoe, and they all start to wither away and die. That's basically what happens. And they never figure out what was in the cake, because they don't know that it was the cake. Because it's not so toxic that they just fall down and die instantly. No, they take the stuff home with them, and then by the time that they find out about it, the guy's nowhere to be found, of course. That's why it's a really cool concept. Then we had no gifts this year. Now, I did find this one on CreepyPasta's channel, but that's only because he does a lot of feels pastas, and this is basically a feels pasta. But I did like it, and it was a great story. My favorite of the year, we are finally here. Santa's Other Workshop. Oh, I've got so much to say about this story. Alright, so, kicking off the best story that I think I did this year, other than, of course, what I have already mentioned, Santa's Other Workshop is extremely original in its concept, and extremely original in basically everything in it. It goes into the story of Egraita, who is a banished elf working in the Other Workshop, which is a workshop hidden beneath the regular workshop of Santa's, which is castaway. It's all the castaway elves, and they're stripped of their immortality and forced to work with flimsy materials and never to create beautiful things like all the other elves. It's really a cool concept. I thought it was great. It kind of goes into, I don't remember, but I could have sworn I had seen something where there was like dark elves that I don't fucking remember. It was some old like Christmas thing, I'm sure. But there was something I thought I had remembered, and it reminded me of that, and I loved it. So I love old Christmas stuff, and the fact that it's a Christmas story, it's just perfect. And basically, I can't give away what he does because it's too good. I need you to listen to it. But it goes into his story and what he does to get back at the children of man, as he puts it. And I cannot express to you how amazing this story is. Dr. Creepen has read it. Creeparoni has read it. I have read it. The original creator has read it. Several other people have read it. It is a great story, and you need to hear it if you have not. I don't care if it's my version. You just need to hear it. You might even want to hear it from the man himself, Sid Super C. Can never fucking say something without getting a fucking tongue twister. Sid Super Sidious Creepypastas. There we go. Try saying that 5 times fast. It's Cold Outside by Ward Hockett, who is the author of last year's entry, The Krampus is Coming. And, son of a bitch, things in my room just do not want to stay where they're supposed to go, do they? Okay. Now that I got that done. It's Cold Outside is an interesting story about, well, I can't really give this away to you. You just need to listen to that one. It's pretty self-explanatory what it's going to have to do with. Next, I did my update, which kind of went into stuff I'm going to be doing in 2018, which I'll get more into, of course, as we get further into the year. And then we had Red Christmas, Elf on the Shelf by Unsettling Stories, A Spy Cam in My Christmas Tree Caught More Than Just Santa, and To Grandmother's House We Go. And I thought that one, honestly, that one was a really great story too. So, no hate for that one. That one was a very good story. It just couldn't compare, in my opinion, to the final story of our year, A Christmas Feast by none other than Michael Whitehouse, the man, the myth, the legend, Ghastly Tales himself. So, that was 2017 last year. Shit, I can't believe we're already in 2018. So, happy 2018, everybody. Of course, you can be expecting The Asylum to be posted right after this video. I'm actually going to post this one first, and then I will get into editing The Asylum. It will go up a little bit later today, so I do expect that video. It will be going up later today, and I do hope that you all enjoy this year. Come back on the 31st for the trailer for Madness in Wonderland 2018. I might even be extending my offer of a role, since I do have several roles coming up. I might even extend one to some certain narrators that follow me, that I might actually be able to get to do some stuff. And rest assured, you'll all enjoy the choices that I have. But that's not a guaranteed, and on the update that, to update you all on the status of my reboot of Pen Pal, I did message Mr. Auerbach. I have not received a message back. He did read my message, and then he never responded. So, yeah. I don't know why that is, but I'm going to attempt to email him, and if that doesn't work, we just might not be able to reboot the series. Or, well, you know, worst case scenario, I can reboot the old internet ones and put them all into one, but I really wanted to do the book. That would have been super special, and it's not something everybody else is doing. But, you know, if I can't get permission, I'm not going to do it, because I'm not going to put myself at risk like that, and I'd never want to disrespect the author of my favorite story by doing that, so I could never bring myself to do that to him. But if I get a response back, rest assured I'll let you know. Other than that, everybody, I've got a lot of work to do, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off now. Thank you all for the immense support this last year in making 2017 a great year for me. There was a lot of ups and downs, but probably more downs than ups, but there were a lot of ups on the channel here, and that's where I can make some stuff up. And this year is going to be even better. I will be moving again at the end of this year, but it will be to a new state, so it'll be a lot better. And whenever I get to that state, rest assured, I'll be making a lot more content. So, yeah. And I'll let you all know when that's coming up. That'll be about October. So I might not be able to do my Halloween series this year. But that's okay. You know, that's okay. Because I got a good one out last year. You can refresh yourself on that if you haven't. If you're really that desperate. But, you know, seriously, thank you everybody. And happy 2018!